Started. And I'd just like to let everyone know that we're going to record the session just in case somebody wants to review it or look at it at a later time. And yeah, good morning. Thanks for all coming. So today we have Coby, who's going to help, who's going to present this webinar, and he's a workforce specialist, and he focuses on progressive human resources, talent development, and improving business performance. He's got a master's degree from St. FX in adult education, and focuses on building workforce skills, and has designed many training products to support better employment engagement, morale, and team performance. So I hope you all enjoy the webinar, and I'll hand it off to Coby. Can you share your screen? I'll just make sure that.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
You can. You have access. Okay, perfect.
So let me just get things set up here. So hi everybody. It's interesting to be trying to do this stuff based on through Zoom. I'm far more used to doing everything through in person. So I'm trying to get my slides to come up. And so I'm not too sure what, are you guys able to see my main full screen slide? Or you still see the program?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
There's two buttons to share your screen, usually the green button on the bottom underneath, and then there's a second one you'll have to click when that window opens up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to share the main screen, but it's not wanting to.
Sometimes if the links don't work, an Alt-S will allow you to share screen as well.
Well, it's not that I can't share the screen. It's not sharing the screen that I wanted to share. So what are you able to see now?
Your PowerPoint in presentation, not in presentation style.
And
so we see the slide. There you go. You got
Perfect.
it.
Got it.
Sorry about that. Just trying to get through it all. So yeah, so again, clearly this through the Zoom is not something I've fully gotten used to. But I mean, for me, I've always been someone that really craves the in-person and the back and forth. So, but I'm sure we can have some fun with all this today. So I want to talk about the need to improve confidence in the labor market. We're going to talk about some of the factors and some of the influences that impact the labor market, and I'm going to try and marinate you with a little bit of data and some statistics to kind of help reinforce some of the more essential elements here. Because again, ultimately, really, it's important for us to fully understand kind of a bit of the context around the challenges, both historical challenges and the challenges that we have now. So before I do that, just to kind of reiterate a little bit. So Roman 3 operations is a division of Roman 3 solutions. The operations division would specialize in helping organizations add PEP to their business. So we say PEP is performance, efficiency, and productivity. But the way that we like to describe what we do is we're really about the people side of productivity. And that's really kind of where our interest and passion is. And that's really kind of where a lot of the work that affects the workforce comes in. So the basic outline for what we're going to talk about today is I want to define this lack of confidence in the labor market. Like, what is it? Where does it come from? And the bulk of the time, we're looking at the factors that contribute to the confidence, and then we'll look at steps to help resolve and improve things going forward. So what do we mean by the lack of confidence? Basically, it's really about the impact of people, not feeling that they are motivated or that they want to or that they're safe to go back to work. But it's also, once they are at work, it's about the effects of things like poor attendance and high turnover. It's the lack of motivation both to work, but also kind of once they're there in their jobs. And all these factors really kind of create this poor performance and poor productivity. So this is really kind of what we mean when we say that there's a lack of confidence. It's really kind of speaking to more or less these elements. So the three things we're going to cover, probably the most relevant, but maybe not the most important, but the most relevant certainly is wages. It is something that is probably in top of mind with most people. So I hear a lot of conversations about things like EI and CERB have had, have caused this current lack of confidence. And I would go as far as to say that these programs, these alternatives, didn't cause a lack of confidence in the labor market. They really highlighted it and amplified its effects. Because when it comes to wages, these alternatives typically impact seasonal workers or low wage workers, where they have the ability to look at their situation and see if they can, if the alternatives would provide them a better solution, and where they can make their ends meet. So it's often with businesses that, again, are paying around minimum wage or are paying higher than minimum wage, but maybe for a shorter season or shorter amount of time, like a 3-month kind of work at a certain wage, or again, looking at seasonal work. But this type of the type of influences that to the workforce that low wage and seasonal work can have is something that I don't think most people truly understand the full impact of, because you really can't address this without looking at a major influence to the workforce, which is poverty. So I want to quickly give some context around how poverty what poverty looks like in our workforce, but also the effects that it has to workers and employers in their everyday. So what's interesting is that the poverty line for a 4-person family, 2 adults and 2 children in Nova Scotia, in rural Nova Scotia, is $42,000 roughly. And this is the cumulative needs in order for them to, this is what they typically spend on these types of things. And the poverty is quite a well-studied phenomenon. And it's something that, we all understand is something that needs to be addressed. And so part of the idea of addressing is, well, if people get good jobs and working full time, then poverty is far less likely of an issue. But the reality is that 2 adults working full time only have the collective income, net income, of around $40,000. So there's still a $2,500 difference that keeps them below the poverty line while working full time. And this is kind of the phenomenon that we talk about in a lot of ways that we refer to as the working poor. And it's something that is a problem that really does, most businesses and a lot of people don't really understand the impact, because if you're working full time, there's the expectation that you have the means to be a reliable employee. But when you're living below the poverty line, you have a higher likelihood of facing challenges, or the challenges are more complicated, or the more compounded. So you have things like less reliable transportation. So it's things like, you can't afford a vehicle, or you can't afford to maintain your vehicle, or you're relying on the public system. Your nutrition options may be limited. You may be looking for cheap food or faster food, and which inherently, if you're not eating properly, can cause short-term and long-term health effects. If you have less access to prescriptions, or you can't afford prescriptions that you have, you may not be able to properly treat illnesses, or you may be avoiding dental care due to those costs, or you may not be able to get proper eyeglass prescriptions. And if you live in less dependable housing, then it may impact your environmental factors, which could cause things like mold and sickness, which could miss time off work, or problems that come up with, at home can be a problem that can cause, stress or to bring a lot of the difficulties to work. And things like less reliable communications. If someone has a phone that's their main source of communication and their phone breaks, they may not be able to afford a new one, or they may not be able to have the credit that they need in order to get the plans with the rollover data, or minutes. That way, they have a limited number of minutes and they can't afford to get new ones every month, so their phone becomes inactive. So when we have issues around reliability of transportation, reliability due to people being healthy and being able to come to work and fully attend and being able to access them, when businesses see these challenges and they're doing seasonal work or part-time work, or they're paying around minimum wage, this can be where a lot of the problems they're having around those things can come from. And it's really important to fully understand that this impact and how it definitely plays a role in the way that the stability and the confidence in the workforce, if this is the type of workforce we're dealing with. Because the thing about wages is that, you know, the way that businesses see it is they see it as, like, you know, well, this is how we can, you know, if this doesn't work out at this price point, and this is kind of around a big problem with the employees, fault the employees. The thing is that if wages are a major issue, sometimes people will leave for 25 cents more an hour or 50 cents or whatever. And that becomes a major point of, again, instability in the labor market, and a major point of lack of confidence in the ability for people to maintain good employees. But I think what is an unrealized influence is the fact that it's very expensive to lose an employee. So again, first, a little bit of data I want you to understand is that the result of many case studies, studying many different businesses, show that the cost of losing a minimum wage worker, when you consider things like loss of productivity, time for management and ownership to spend retraining, you know, poor morale, having to bring on someone new, recruiting, all that other kind of stuff, it works out to about $5,000. And this is the cost. This is the direct, you know, result of you losing money off your bottom line every time you lose a minimum wage worker. And if someone is leaving for 25 cents more an hour, then, you know, then there is a major problem that is costing over around $5,000 to lose that one person. But if you do the quick math, what's an interesting thought is that, you know, paying someone $1 an hour more it costs less than $2,000 a year. So if there's an idea that, you know, you want to do, maybe if it is a wage issue, then maybe there is more opportunity to look at the full cost benefit analysis. Like, you know, could you end up being ahead by $3,000 if you pay people $1 an hour more? And the thing is that as we look at higher wages, we look at there's actually a bigger impact on what employee turnover causes. That employee turnover, when you're getting into like 45, 50, and so on, the loss, the cost to the business of that goes up significantly as well. And it's the thing is that these are things that most people don't consider as being really, you know, as being a major influence on the work and on the business itself. So I want to share this with you, not to say that, you know, things like poverty and turnover is something that it's fully on, like, in businesses have to solve, but it's more understanding the context of the direct correlation between poverty and challenges with the businesses may have with their staff, and how it affects the instability and the confidence in the labor market, but also how turnover and really HR in general, your labor costs, how that really does affect your bottom line. And so my hope is that this context will make it a little bit clearer about kind of what is some of the underlying causes of some of the symptoms that we see with challenges with both people maintaining their long-term employment, but also kind of the everyday issues that may come up. So the next factor that I want to discuss is about the working environment. And again, this is probably maybe less immediately relevant as wages may be, but it's probably a more important thing to consider. So when you look at where problems come from that may impact the confidence of people going back to work, immediately the first thing that comes to mind is health and safety, especially with COVID. But what's been really interesting is that the way that we have been kind of responding as a society to COVID has been very much about health and safety. I mean, businesses are going out of their way to prove to their customers and to their employees that, you know, it's safe to come back to work, and we have your health and safety in front of mind. And this does create a lot of confidence around it. And I would even go as far as to say that we're actually seeing a kind of a general reappreciation of the benefits and the needs for health and safety. So that is one thing that is a problem, but I do think is, you know, there's a lot of effort being done to address that. Another problem that affects people's desire and motivation to go back to work is about going back to difficult and demanding jobs. Some jobs are hard to fill by the nature of them. And that's why governments and long-term solutions are looking at things like automation to kind of help improve that. And that's something that isn't a quick fix, because the nature of some work is just it's challenging, it's difficult, and it's physical or whatever it is. But by putting in efforts like strategic recruitment, and kind of really working really having a better understanding of your labor pool and the people that come in, you can mitigate a lot of that in the short term while still working towards automation in the long term. So that is something that, there are people already trying to solve those solutions now that really does have some ways of really mitigating the impact of those problems. But probably where the most important lies is when it comes to the workplace environment and the workplace culture. So this is often where a lot of this lack of confidence people wanting to come back to work comes from. It's things like poor morale in general with the people that they work with. It's the feeling that they get when they come into work, and how they feel about their coworkers and their employers. There's issues around harassment. Sometimes just people are being harassed or feeling harassed, or there's a culture where there's a sense of confrontation, of unhealthy confrontation. It's kind of normalized. Excuse me. And the stress that goes along with that can be a major reason why people are choosing to take a hit in income in order to not have to go back to work, to not have to deal with some of the challenges. In a less severe sense, we have interpersonal conflicts that may be that may come up amongst staff and amongst management and everybody in between. But sometimes it's a matter of apathy. No one really cares about the job. Everyone kind of phones it in, or no one takes the job seriously, or I'm not feeling appreciated, and no one else really is. So why even bother? And then there's a sense of complacency where it's a matter of just kind of coming in and being busy and feeling unmotivated to do the work. And so people are having time off and having time with their families, maybe seeing what was normal to them in a different light. And like, well, now we understand how much that was, how much I was bringing home every day with all these different, workplace culture instances. And now that I've been home as I was off for a few months with the lockdown, maybe I'm not as motivated to go back, because it's not that, it's not that healthy of an environment to be in. And so people are really kind of having a fresh perspective on their workplace. So again, going back to some of the stats and data, so there's a significant number of people that will leave their jobs due to a toxic workplace or because of negative office politics. It tends to be a very high percentage of the people that actually their main reason for leaving is due to the specific challenges that they have to deal with, the stress they have to deal with just being in their jobs, or the sense of unfairness that they feel in their work. And the thing is that sometimes it's not their main reason for leaving, but it tends to be the catalyst for why they start looking to begin with. They have a bad day, or they do not feel like they're being really, properly utilized, or whatever it is. So they may, so this is often the reason, well, maybe I'll look for something else. And then maybe they, end up leaving for other reasons. But the main reason why they started to get ready to go is because of their sense of job dissatisfaction. So it's important to understand that the workplace culture has, and the stress that goes along with it can have a major impact on why people are not returning to work. But when you look at things like wages and the livability of the income levels, and things like the work environment, and people talking about their jobs and the problems that they had going back to it, those together can end up creating one of the biggest factors why people are not as immediately quick to return to work, which has to do with the reputation. So by reputation is really the perception of the business as an employer, as a workforce option in the community. Sometimes there's this sense of perception, whether true or not. Maybe it's a matter of a few bad stories that caught on, but if people are feeling like they're going to go back to a job would be treated like a commodity, where they're something to be utilized and disposed of, or they're feeling like they're just a number in the system, and that they're if there's any problems, or if there's any kind of hiccups, then the response of the business is to replace them quickly rather than investing in improving it. It's that kind of reputation that makes people very hesitant to apply to begin with. So going back to the data, a large portion of people would rather maintain unemployment, provided that they can make, they're not, survival's not a risk. But they'd rather, take that area of unemployment rather than work for a business that has a bad reputation. And, if people are hearing this is not a good place to work, if they don't have a better option, then they may be forced to try it out at a place that has a better reputation. But provided there is some other option, a vast majority of people will not take the leap and go to a business if the reputation is bad. And again, it's the idea that people will often not continue on, or will not, will not recommend even other people to kind of go to a place if the reputation of being bad with their employees or being bad with the public, that negative perception that people have of the businesses, causes a major instability in people wanting to go to the work, whether it's a business or whether it's an industry or whether it's a region. If the idea that the reputation of having of not being good to workers or not being good to or creating a lot of job dissatisfaction in people, that's one of the major factors that people, new workers and even existing workers, are gonna really consider when the option to go back to work happens. So one thing that's really interesting is the fact that the businesses that take the time to address things like the problems with wages and livability of it, and look to improve workplace morale. Maybe they put in some small projects to make sure, or they deal with harassment issues as they may come up, or they resolve an interpersonal conflict, or they improve communications, and it does help the reputation. The expectation is that if they they paint their break room and they make the place a little bit nicer, and so and people there's not as many problems with harassment or issues. There's this concept of, well, we've fixed it up, then we've eliminated job dissatisfaction. So now we've eliminated it. What comes next is job satisfaction. But the reality is it doesn't. By fixing the problems and resolving job dissatisfaction, what you create is a middle step that we call job neutrality. You go from kind of it being a bad job to being an okay job. It's all right. It's kind of neutral. It's not, it's not terrible, but it's not great. That just by resolving the job dissatisfaction, it doesn't inherently create job satisfaction. You actually have to go from job neutrality to implementing things to help improve motivation and improve engagement, improve support, so that way you do create the sense of job satisfaction. So the real question is, how do we create this job satisfaction? And the answer is basically the concept of employee engagement. It's the idea of putting in the effort, time to support your employees. And it's about employees feeling that they are present, they are active, they're enthusiastic, and they're motivated. Because most people enter a job with a fair amount of enthusiasm and a fair amount of motivation. And if they're in a situation where there's either job dissatisfaction, it tends to drop pretty quick, they lose a lot of that motivation, or if there's a sense of job neutrality, then it may kind of damper over time because nothing really reinvents it. But there really has been this expectation that there is this need to fully engage with the workers. So traditionally, strategies kind of, if you go back to like a little history lesson, if you go back to the Depression era, then it was a matter of, you have a job, so you should feel, so you should be happy, with that and get back to work. But then that, just became not good enough anymore. People got used to just having jobs, and just having one wasn't enough to make people, content and engaged and motivated. So then we look at, say, post-war, it was like, we had a shift in the way the labor market is, and we had more demand than supply. So it became, well, now you have your 40-hour work weeks and your weekends off. So you should be happy with that. So get back to work. But then the idea that became, not good enough either. So then if we move to, say, the pre-digital era, so not that long ago, it was businesses going out with, with like the concrete symbols of recognition, and being like, hey, we have bonuses, and we have, Christmas parties, and we, have new facilities with a fresh coat of paint, and, so picnics in the summertime. So we have these things. So you should be happy and get back to work. And the thing is that we're moving into a sense where, that's not good enough anymore. And we need to start shifting towards some new approaches, because as we get more acclimatized, more accustomed to them, they become job neutrality. Just like having a job was job satisfaction, it became job neutrality. And having the 40-hour work weeks and time off became job satisfaction, but then it just eventually became job neutrality. And same with the programs that we're in now. So what we have to look at new approaches. So going back to employee engagement, this really kind of is where a lot of the new approaches need to move towards. So employee engagement now is, so we at Roman 3 do a fair amount of work and resources and programs to support employee engagement. And we describe it as kind of four things. So we use the acronym RAMP. So RAMP stands for recognition, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So recognition is about showing appreciation and recognizing effort, making people feel respected, appreciated, and valued, and really kind of having that be kind of the culture of your workplace, of recognition and appreciation. Autonomy is about giving people the trust to do their work and allowing them to kind of they have your confidence to do the work, the way that it needs to get done, giving them some flexibility in how they do their work. Sometimes it's a matter of things like, if is remote working as an option, things like that are a great way to kind of show more autonomy, because a part of it is berealizing that you want to move from a time-based work where your success is measured by sitting at a desk or sitting in your office or being in your shift for your 9 to 5. Moving away from success based on where you spend your time towards it being about the task. So it's about whenever you work on this, I expect quality by this end date, and then when you work is kind of on you. That's the sense of moving towards autonomy, because it also allows people to move towards a bit of more work-life balance, which is a big thing that is becoming expected in the modern workforce. And we move back to our RAMP acronym. So M is for mastery. Mastery is about helping them build their skills to be better at their jobs, utilizing the skills that they have, letting them play more to their strengths, and using more, a more intentional effort the way that people are doing their jobs. They can both utilize the skills that they have to be better at their job, and investing in skills to again make them more competent. People want to be good at what they do, and by giving someone the empowering them to do that is one of the ways that really can be a motivating factor and create job satisfaction. And the last one is purpose. And purpose is something that is very, very important, especially now, as people want to know, what is the point of my job? How does my job influence people that I work with, the person next to me? How does me doing my job help them? What is my role within the larger scheme of the company? So there's that sense of purpose within their role in their job, but also what is the company's purpose? Are they just about profits and lining the pockets of management and ownership? Or is there a larger purpose? Are they trying to help make the community better? Because people want to know that what they're doing matters. So making efforts to show that can go a long way to helping people feel that they have a sense of purpose in their job. And those four things are really fundamental elements to creating employee engagement and job satisfaction. So jumping back into the data, so disengaged employees can be an expensive part of a business. So again, it's like 34% of your labor costs can be eaten away by employee disengagement, by the sense of of being on your phone when you're at the office, or not fully engaging in the work, or putting in the minimum amount of effort, or just doing just enough so that you're not in trouble with your manager, or Ken is not doing your job. So to businesses, if businesses could be able to put more effort into employee engagement, or able to resolve these issues, imagine a 34% increase on your bottom line of your labor costs. That could be massive. So when you deal with when we have engaged employees, you end up having people that are less likely to have issues, health and safety problems, or incidents, I should say. So it's the idea that people are, if they're more engaged, they're more present, they're more focused, then they're more likely to, to have less incidences with health and safety, and they're 5 times less likely, and they're 7 times less likely to have incidences that are going to shut down production or shut down operations or slow down the productivity of the people, because they're more focused, they're not on autopilot, and they're more motivated and more enthusiastic, so they're more careful. So organizations with high employee engagement significantly outperform those with low engagement. So if you have 2 businesses that are pretty much the same, and you have a really engaged and enthusiastic and motivated team versus an unmotivated and unengaged team, obviously the ones that are motivated and enthusiastic are going to end up outperforming, and significantly outperforming. And often, we hear about things like businesses wishing there was customer service training or customer service solutions because they're having problems with their customer service. And a lot of the specific problems that people have, the symptoms of customer service challenges, tends to often come from this lack of engagement. It's people, again, on their phones when they're trying to deal with customers, or not having the proper attitude when talking to people, or not going the extra mile to provide a good level of service. It's because they're not engaged or motivated in their own jobs. So when you have a good engaged workforce, your customers, they get that, they see it. I mean, we can all think of, I'm sure, our own examples of people, of situations where we've been more motivated to shop at a store, or we have a much better experience when there's a really enthusiastic and motivated group working there. And if people are more drawn to those kind of environments, that's going to increase their spending habits. They're going to buy more, which is going to have a direct, increase on your sales and revenue. So one of the things that, if we want to take everything back to the earlier slide, when I talked about the definition of lack of confidence in the workforce around things like motivation, absenteeism, productivity, turnover, the stats really do say that engaging a workforce is something that will improve your absenteeism, improve your productivity, and it'll limit your turnover. And employment engagement is not a simple fix. So none of this is a simple, turn it around in a short amount of time. It's about looking at kind of the systemic, causes that affect these symptoms of things like absenteeism and lack of productivity and turnover. So it's something that we have to realize is not, I apologize for anyone that tuned in hoping that I would say, do these 3 things in this order for this duration and your problems are solved, because they're not easy fixes. When you're talking about HR, you're talking about customers, or sorry, talking about employees, you're talking about complex problems. And complex problems don't have simple solutions. It's often incremental changes, incremental improvements that will have the result that you're looking for, but eventually. And we have to work hard and diligently commit to it and being consistent in order to, again, improve engagement in this sense that will show a significant change in the reputation of businesses, and more enthusiasm in how people are applying for jobs, and will have a greater ability to, again, improve the confidence in the labor market. Now, I went over a lot of different things. I went over a lot of different stats and stuff kind of quickly, so I apologize if I went too quickly. But the one thing I kind of want people to have as the main takeaway is that when we talk about consumer confidence, so building confidence, people coming back to shopping, it's a little bit better understood in a sense, because people know that if customers can feel safe and they feel, and they're reminded that your business has provides good value, that they're fair, and that that they're welcome back, and they're going to have a good experience, then it's something that is kind of how we start building confidence in the consumer markets again. But the one thing that most people don't think about the labor market is it's just it's a market, just like the consumer market. And the parallels between the labor market and the consumer market there's a lot more than most people realize. That the thing is that if they both operate on supply and demand, if there's a need for people, if people want to go to a place, then that'll increase the demand, and that will ultimately affect the way that you look at new employees. That both expect a good value. Customers expect a fair price for the product, just like workers expect a fair wage for their service. They both want fairness, and they both want to be shown that it's a safe and fair and welcoming environment to be in. And if they have a good experience, they will tell others. And if they have a bad experience, they will tell others. And I think if there's only one thing that you take away from this, is that maybe as if we can start to shift how we see the labor market to see it more of a mirror of the consumer market, then the strategies that we kind of are a little bit better known of how to improve confidence in the better known consumer market. If we apply a lot of similar strategies to resolving the confidence in the labor market, then we may be able to take the steps we need to, again, start revitalizing that confidence and hopefully help to a sense of new normalcy, or ideally be better than we were before. So the last thing I want to say is, again, I went over this stuff fairly quickly, but it's a very high level talk. But we're working with the CBDCs on trying to build some training courses around employee engagement and employee motivation to go into these in a lot more detail. So we're trying to build Zoom-based courses that we can deliver in a 5-part, an hour-and-a-half session to help businesses actually understand this in a little bit more detail, and maybe help them tie some strategies to their specific business to help them resolve some challenges that they're facing right now, and provide some more one-on-one engagement rather than just having everyone listen to me speak. So again, if you're interested in finding out how, once we kind of have a better idea of where those courses are going to be going, please feel free to send me an email, and I'll add you to our list to inform you of once we have more news about the progression of these courses with CBDC. And also, if you want a copy of this slide, this slideshow, or if you want of the infographic about poverty, they're available on our website at operations.roman3/workforce influences. And so I think that's all for me. So I'm happy to take any questions. Nobody?
No questions?
I'm kind of curious what we're looking at in terms of students' engagements. I know that the presentation here was a lot about employee engagement. I watched a lot of students, and my children as part of those this summer, really struggle with the things that were in place in terms of the CERB and the student CERB, and looking at jobs saying, I'd love to give this a try, but if I do and it doesn't work out, then I'm out money to go back to school in the fall. And it is that confidence piece in the engagement in the employee market. But it was really interesting to me to listen to their perspective and say, you know what, if they're not following the regulations and they're not meeting the expectations, I can't just walk away from this job now, because now I have nothing because I've quit a job. So is there any kind of thoughts around that, kind of trust factor, that building that loyalty? I find our young people have a different set of values and are looking at employees with a much kind of, when I was younger, we were happy to have a job. Now I find my kids are fussy about the jobs they're taking, and they're really looking at that, as you said in there, the employee engagement, the morale of the space, the reputation of the organization, before they'll even consider applying.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question. And again, students are kind of an interesting, well, they're a great population to always keep an eye on, because the students themselves grow up and become adults like us. We were all, that collective at one point in time. But I mean, they're studied as a group, and they say, yeah, we're not happy with just having a job. We expect, as I said, the things around employee engagement, we expect job satisfaction. And just like, other generations have said before, which is how we've got to where we are now. But a lot of it comes back to the reputation. If any businesses are not building confidence by saying, we're taking the COVID stuff seriously, like, we're investing in you as an employee, we're not just going to replace you as soon as there's a problem, then that's what needs to happen. Is there needs to be that sense of, we're not just saying that we're there for you, we are there for you. We build confidence slowly, just like confidence in people. You have to, it's built with time and with trust and consistency. Because I mean, to say that that we are going to solve this problem, and then they put a little bit of effort into it, and then they go back to their old ways. That's the problem that people are worried about. Is that, are you just telling me what I want to hear, and then you become dependent on me for a job, or I can depend on you for a job, and then now you didn't follow through with what you said, and now I'm stuck in a situation where I'm not eligible for the alternatives anymore, or there's a delay in me being at my eligibility, and I'm worse off than I was before I took the leap. Right. And that's really what it is people are worried about being worse off. But the confidence has to come from, again, businesses that have had a good reputation before all this, that are known for being good employees or good employers, that put job satisfaction into their work. They haven't been as affected by this instability in the labor market as ones that maybe weren't the best, didn't have the best reputation, I should say, previously. So I think that it's a matter of, businesses need to realize that COVID and CERB and all this stuff has amplified the impacts of problems that maybe existed before all this happened. So
I think that's very true. I think it's boiled up to the surface, because there were some outs for the kids this summer to say, hey, I'm not taking that crappy job with you. I've got enough money that'll tide me over till I get my student loan in the fall. And that was what I saw. And it was really interesting to see how people were responding to that. And the people who, for some people, the CERB was a raise.
Yeah.
And you're looking at that and going, yeah, I would stay on that too if that's a raise. How do you go back to a job that is putting your family in more financial hardship when the resources are there? So I love the analogy that you did about the cost of hiring somebody new versus giving them $1 raise. Often businesses get bogged down in that, I can't give a big dollar, that $1 is a big amount. But when you look at the cost of repurposing or rehiring someone in a position, it's really a minimal amount of cost in the long run. And we get so stuck on those numbers that we don't really look at the big picture of the effects of it. So great example. I like that.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anyone else?
Coby, it's Lynn here.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Coby. Just wondering if you have any success stories to share with us, even if like a company is just starting down that road and hasn't completely finished the journey, but if there's something concrete.
So I can't, I won't lie and say that I have examples of people that are doing great right now, because again, this is such a difficult time to, that people are sort of into, but there are successes that of people that, again, had the sense of job satisfaction, had the reputation pre-COVID, that are more resilient and handling and likely handling the impacts of all this better. Things like the Noodle Guy is a good example that they were putting more effort into. Again, pre-COVID, their wages they focused on livable wages, and they had a good reputation of being a good employer and having a sense of family in their business. Another example from working kind of at the more industrial level on workforce stuff was we definitely heard a lot more positive stories of from Eden Valley as far as manufacturers that were not having the same labor challenges that other businesses of similar scope and size, because again, they have more sense of purpose in their work. And some of these places, like going back to the new guy, they have almost zero turnover, which again, if you look at the cost of replacing an employee, is something that they're able to kind of bank that difference, because again, there's less money going out the door slowly over time from loss of productivity and the cost of hiring a new person.
Absolutely.
So again, I can't speak to what they are right now, just with everything, but I can tell you that they're probably faring better. I haven't checked with them, but they're probably faring better, and I'm sure their recovery is going to be a much quicker, smoother process than people that were experiencing these challenges before all this happened.
Well, I certainly think that you're offering a great service, and you're going down, a road that needs to be explored. So I will happily refer any employers I happen to come across that are experiencing difficulties. I'll happily refer them to you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I actually have one, Coby, if no one else has a question there. It's just going back to the slide for the disengaged employee cost, that 3,400 that you were that you had in your slides. I was just wondering if when you were doing that research or within that article or segment, were there any specifics in regards to where those costs were coming from? I mean, we can all imagine,
I can't speak to the way that, here, let's bring the slide up to, I can bring the slide up. Yeah, let's go back this way, actually. Sorry, let's go back to it. Oh, did I miss it?
Yeah, I think you passed it.
Yeah, so, sorry, engagement where it was, sorry. Oh, I'm not sure where it went. Anyway, I'll say it was the cleaning company that did the research on that, and they didn't cite in their information the specific method of measurement for it, but again, it tends to go back to the areas of performance and productivity. That if people are less enthusiastic and less motivated in their work, then they really don't, they just don't work as efficiently, and they don't put in the extra little bits. And, so it really has more to do with, I imagine their main source of measurement would be around the performance productivity of their employees over time.
And that's what I was kind of picturing, if there's a disengaged employee in, say, a sales department, and, the sales numbers aren't there, the performance isn't there. I was just wondering if they kind of delved into more specifics.
I would say that probably the customer service point that I made earlier about the customers really understand, and they really get the impacts of an engaged employee. Because again, lots of people have stories of being turned off businesses due to maybe not necessarily a terrible experience, but just not a good experience. They didn't feel valued as a customer, so they went somewhere that would make them. I mean, that loss of sales directly, I'm sure has a major impact. I'm sure a lot of customer service related businesses would really, that would resonate with them.
Yeah, thanks. All right, any other questions for Coby? No one else? All right, well, we'd like to thank you, Coby, for the great webinar, and thank you for everyone who came. And if anyone wants to have this slide again or has any questions, you can reach out to me, myself, or Coby directly. And that's it for today.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you to the REN for taking the leadership on pushing forward these types of conversations need to happen, and I appreciate that the REN has been taking that kind of leadership to make sure that there's a focused and committed discussions around these kind of issues. Because again, a lot of them gone ignored for a long time. So thank you very much, Dan.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.